Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. I decided today to show you first of all a little tiny instrument that is a Peruvian ocarina. As you know, I've started bringing in unusual instruments that I have because most of the time you won't see them unless you see them here. Some of them are rare and are not made anymore. Some of them are just unusual, and even though you can buy them, a lot of people don't. So this is a Peruvian ocarina, and it's very small. 2 weeks ago, I brought in a mini ocarina, which was only like about an inch. This one is bigger than that, but it's very small. Let me move it so you can see the front of it. This is all handmade and hand painted. It's made out of clay. Everything is hand done. It has a good little tone. It's very much like a typical recorder in some of its characteristics, but most of the ocarinas are. If you look at it carefully, we try not to drop it because since it's clay, it is very breakable. But if you look at the back, in the back, you have the labium. You know that in the recorders, you have a little square-like place and right below the mouthpiece where air goes in and out. This would be the same thing here. It's called the labium. This is the mouthpiece, which is somewhat like a Fipple mouthpiece, which the recorders have. You can see a little line going across, and that's where you blow in. And you have your finger holes, both front and back. In the back, you have 2 finger holes, one on each side. And in the front, you have 6. 3 on each side. They're harder to play than a regular recorder because of the fact that you have some fingers are opening and closing tone holes on the right hand and some on the left. So it's not like a straight down pattern of left on top, right on the bottom, and that kind of thing. So I'm going to play a couple of notes. I'm not going to try to play a song with it. I don't know as it's quite capable of that. It has a very nice tone to it. It plays very easily. And that's what you look for in an instrument, handmade in Peru. So this is my instrument of the day. I love it. It's made to be worn. It has a little cord so you can put it around your head. I have actually done music seminars and symposiums where I have worn it because since it's an instrument and the symposium I'm doing is on music, I bring it in and then I talk about it. Whoops, I talk about it and they can see what it's like to wear an instrument like that, all hand painted. So I have used it, and it is a very nice little one. So I'm going to start off by playing a song. And it's going to be the first song, and then I'm going to go into a review. I want to start reviewing some basic things, how to choose an instrument, how do you know whether you have a good instrument, what to buy, what not to buy, and that kind of thing. And the reason I'm going to be doing a review is the fact that, you know, you're not sitting beside me. I don't know what your skill level is. I don't know whether you're just beginning to watch this program and you haven't had any basics at all, or whether you're more advanced. So I think every so often I need to review to catch those people that haven't had any training at all and show them what their mistakes might be. I've heard a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people play and heard a lot of people with questions, and I think it's just time to do that. So we'll start off with a piece, and I think what we'll do is the single track first on this piece, and then we'll do the double track. Now we're going to do the same song and we're going to do a double track. I pre-recorded all of this, so there's going to be an extra harmony in there that's already been pre-recorded, and when it turns out, I'm actually playing a trio with myself. So we'll try that again. something that I wrote. And what I'm doing is I'm writing music for what I play in some of these segments that I'm doing, just so that you'll have a chance to see that it is possible, even if you're a beginner, to write music. Now I'm going to put this up, and we're going to start from the very beginning in terms of choosing an instrument, what to look for, what to expect. How do you know when you've got a good instrument? So we'll begin with this. Supposing that you want to buy a recorder. A lot of the students that I have start out on recorders because they've been playing them since they were kids. But what you need to know about the recorder, it is a legitimate instrument. It is not a toy. There are orchestras that have all instruments, a different kind of recorder, so that all the instruments are recorders, just different sizes and different shapes. And so you have to realize this is not a toy. So when you get a recorder, you want to get one that's good. There are a lot of good brand names out there. You know, I use a lot of Yamahas. They've never disappointed me. Casios, Gills, Rolands, they're all good instruments, and there are a whole range of instruments that are very good. If you just went into a music store and say, I want to buy a recorder, they'd hand you a C melody, this is what this is, and it would probably be of good quality because they're not going to sell anything that's not of good quality. But there are times when you can buy an instrument that's not as good as you want it to be. So what do you want to get in an instrument? What does a good instrument do? Well, let's just take a look at this chart. An instrument should always be able to pitch to A440. Now, A440 is a tuning note that's universal. It's universal tuning. It needs to pitch to itself. It needs to blow easily. It needs to get every note clearly. It needs to be able to play octaves. It needs to be able to transition to different notes easily. In other words, it doesn't squeak lightly. It has to be able to play dynamics easily, good quality of tone, blends well with other instruments, does solo work easily. It can be repaired easily, although that's usually not a problem for the recorders because they're simple and they don't have a lot to repair, and they need to have a good brand name. Now, in terms of the brand name, you can't always trust it. You can have a wonderful brand name and have an instrument that's a lemon. You can have a brand name that's not good, not well known, doesn't have a good reputation, and the instrument plays like a dream. So you just can't base it on brand name. But if you know that you have a good brand name, the chances are the instrument will be good. If you're playing saxophones or clarinets or flutes or oboes or bassoons, the regular instruments, you would need to check on the pads, the rods, the corks, the reeds, for those instruments. They would all have to be checked to see if they're all right. You also need to check for cracks in bamboo instruments. I want to mention about the bamboo instruments. I'm going to be doing more of them on the next segment, but just let me show you something here. I have here a bamboo instrument, and it's a little Indian flute. And somebody gave it to me, is actually given to me as a gift. And if you notice, I don't know if you can get a close-up of this or not, but this instrument has cracks in it. It's very easy for a bamboo instrument to crack. And when the instrument cracks, you really can't play it. If you play it, the crack will open up wider, and it'll be worse and worse, and it'll get worse rapidly. There, now we've got it. You can see, if I get it just right, the bad crack. Now, what may not be so visible is there are cracks on the top of the mouthpiece. There are cracks down here. The whole instrument is just cracking. Now, I understand that there are some people that can repair cracked wooden instruments, but it's very expensive, and this instrument wasn't that expensive to begin with. It really wouldn't be worth spending the money on it, and I don't know how well it would hold. With some bamboo instruments that are cheaply made, you can get them in the Caribbean, you can get them in different countries of the world, in Asia, and what happens is they don't use wood that's very thick, or they put it together so tightly easily. The wood is so taut, it's like wrapped around, and as a result of that, it's very easily cracked. When it's cracked, it's all done. This one, I can't even get a tone out of. That's what I'm going to get. You're going to be able to hear air, but you're not going to be able to hear anything else. It's a nice instrument to look at. And if I look at the crack, and I don't know as you can get it that close, but I can actually see through to the inside of the instrument through that crack because it is so wide. It's just poor quality. If you were able to see the top of it, I don't think you're going to be able to catch this, but these cracks go all the way through the mouthpiece. Whoop. They go all the way through the mouthpiece. And as a result of that, there's just no way that you can play an instrument like that. You do have instruments that are made out of wood that are very high quality. And, but the bamboo instruments that you get from foreign countries are usually not that high of a quality. So let's say you want to buy a recorder. What should it be like? I've gone through the list, but let's check. Does it play easily? It plays very easily. Is it in tune with itself? Now, I've already mentioned that it has to be A440. That's the tuning pitch of orchestras and bands all over the world. That's what's always used as a tuning pitch. And it comes from the fact that the violin has an A string, and it vibrates 440 vibrations per second. And so it is used as the tuning standard. And if you go to an orchestral concert, someone will be standing there and they'll be playing that note on a violin usually. If not, some other instrument, of course, can do it. And everyone is pitching to it. Everyone pitches, and it sounds kind of like a song in itself. And then they pitch by sections, they pitch individually, but it has to be in pitch. Well, this instrument is in perfect pitch, and I think most of my instruments are in perfect pitch. But they also have to pitch to themselves. So when I play a C or a G, let's start off with a C. Now I want to play a G. A G is 4 steps below. That's perfect pitch. So it's perfect pitch. Not only that, but it pitches to itself. Easy to blow. Does it do octaves? Well, I'll do some. So it does octaves very easily. It blows easily. It's in pitch with itself. It's in pitch with A440. It does octave easily. It's easy to blow. So now we know we've got an instrument that's a very good instrument, and it can be played in orchestras. It can be played in bands. It's going to pitch because it is perfect pitch. So those are the things that you look for. It's going to blend well because it has a good tone. It's not going to stand out, but if I want it to be a solo instrument, I can cut through what anybody else is playing and have volume on it so that I can do a solo with it. I am going to be able to play softly with it. I'm going to be able to play very loudly with it if I want to do that. And it just works out very well. So you have the instrument. That's what you have. Now, how are you going to hold it? How are you going to play it? The next thing when you have the instrument is to know how to handle it. What do you do next? Well, what you would do is if I were to teach you, I've got to watch my time here, I would teach you by showing you myself what to do. you put your left hand on top and your right hand on the bottom. I do have one instrument where that's reversed, but for almost every single woodwind that you will ever see, it's always left hand on top, right hand on the bottom. It's true for the saxophones, it's true for the flutes, it's true for clarinets, it's true for almost any woodwind that you're playing, for the recorders, for the penny whistles, for the ocarinas. Makes no difference what they are, except for one instrument that I have that's an Israeli instrument that has two bodies and two mouthpieces. Everything is left hand on top and bottom is the right hand. And always when you play it, you curve your fingers. You don't flatten them. I've just seen too many kids play and they try to play with flat fingers. Well, what you're going to do is a lot of squeaking, because when you play with flat fingers, you can't get your hands in the right position to do scale work. What if I want to jump between notes? What if I want to play an arpeggio? What if I want to do some scale work? I can't get it right with flat fingers. The fingers have to be curved, and they have to cover the tone holes completely. If they don't cover the tone holes completely, you're either going to get a note that you're not expecting to get, or you're going to get a squeak. When you squeak it, that's actually known as an overtone, because it actually is a note. It doesn't sound like one, it sounds like a squeak, but you get an overtone, and that is a note, but certainly not the note that you want. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some squeaks and some overtones. That's a squeak, that's a squeal. And I did it deliberately by manipulating what I was doing with the thumb hole in the back to make sure that I got it all right. So it does squeak and it does squeal if you don't have your hands on just right. The clarinets are well known for squealing and squeaking because they're thumb holes. And by the way, this is a fingerboard. The keyboard is when you have your keys that you play. All the other instruments, it's called a fingerboard. If you don't have your fingers on it right, it will squeal. Clarinets all have tone holes that are open. They do make a closed hole clarinet. I've never seen one though, and I imagine it's terribly expensive. Most clarinets have open tone holes, and you have to get those on exactly right. If you don't, then what's going to happen is that you're going to do a whole lot of squealing. So your hands look like this curved. In the back, that tone hole, or that thumb hole, which is actually controls the octaves, that has to be completely closed too. If you want an octave, you pull it down a little bit so you expose a little bit of the hole. You don't take it completely off, because then you have a whole nother note that you're not looking for. But you can take and just reduce it a little bit so a little bit of the hole is showing, and that's how you get octaves. Now it's an amazement to me that so much of what you learn in a recorder is applicable to all of the other instruments that are woodwinds, very applicable. The saxophone, for example, if you were to play C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C on a saxophone, for the most part, the fingerings from the saxophone to the recorder, they're exactly the same. The recorder, you're playing C, B, A, G, F, E, D, and C. Well, that's exactly how you do it on a saxophone for the lower register. On the upper register, you play it the same, except on the saxophone, you have a key, which is a register key, and that register key gets you an octave, or it can be called an octave key. On the little recorders, you don't have any keys, so you use your thumb in the back and pull that open so you actually get an octave. Now, when you see me playing those octaves, I'm not changing any of the fingers in the front. I'm only manipulating the thumb in the back. So a lot of notes you can get your octave just by doing that, by moving the thumb on the back, but not all of them. A D, a low D, a high D, where I actually pick up the fingers and only have this one on. So it's not applicable to every note, but it's applicable to a lot of notes. So there's a lot that you can do, there's a lot that you can learn with a recorder. And I want to mention, most recorders, I guess I don't have this, well, let me try it on this one. You have a foot joint, you have the body, and you have the head joint. You actually can take all of those joints apart. Easy for cleaning, but also you can adjust it. So when I want to put it back together, I can use a little alcohol to clean off where the joints are. And that's important to do that every so often because you can get a residue on them and it makes it hard to get them back on and off. So I've got this partly back on. I will put the foot joint on. The advantage of having an instrument where you can take it apart is that this is so adjustable. When I go from a B, A, G, F, E, D, C, I want to be able to get my small little finger covering those holes on the bottom. Since it's not as long as the other fingers, if you don't have it in the right position, you're going to be stretching to get it. And that means you probably won't be playing the note accurately. The only way I can find out whether I've done it accurately is to try it and see if it comes in. So anyway, I should close now. I guess we've run out of time. But these are some of the basics. I'm going to go on with the basics of timing, how to read time next time, and show you some more instruments and more things about taking care of a recorder, how to play the recorder. It is a nice instrument. It does beautiful music. But I will close it here, and we'll continue with this next time. Please join me then.